Something about this market doesn't feel right to me. Everywhere I look, the headline seems to point in the same direction. There's a war with Iran, creating more uncertainty. The Fed is about to make another rate decision, and at the same time, AI and its huge SpaceX IPO are pulling in all the attention. So you would think Bitcoins would be strong in this setup like that, but it's not. It's actually getting sold. And the more I looked at that, the less it makes sense. Because normally, the kind of environment we're in right now is exactly the kinds of environments that ends up pushing Bitcoin higher. So the question is, why does Bitcoin look weak when the forces behind it are getting stronger? Because if you can't answer that, you're not just reacting to the market. You're starting to understand what might happen next. And by the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how I'm positioning, whether I'm buying, selling, or just waiting. Let's start with the Fed. Right now, rates are sitting around 3.5 to 3.75%, and they expected to hold again. Yes, FOMC Fed meetings this afternoon. I'll explain what happens in the next video. So right now, on the surface, that sounds calm, but it's not. High rates makes money tight. It's harder to borrow. The dollar stays strong, and risk assets like stocks and Bitcoin usually struggle in that kind of environment. Not always crashing, but they don't move easily. They feel stuck. But what really matters here isn't just what the Fed does today, it's what they hint at next. Because the moment the Fed starts signaling that cuts are coming, even slightly, money start flowing back into the system, liquidity come back, and when that happens, market move. You usually see it first in tech, then in growth, and then eventually Bitcoin follows. So the setup is there, but this is where things starts to get strange. Even if conditions are getting closer to improving, Bitcoin still isn't getting the attention, and that's where the second piece comes in. Right now, the focus is somewhere else. Money is chasing the AI trade, and it's chasing new tech. It's chasing big story like SpaceX. That's where people feel opportunity right now. That's where the momentum is. And all of this sits in the same risk categories as Bitcoin. So people are making simple choice, even if they don't say it out loud. Do I buy Bitcoin here, or do I go where things are already moving? And right now, a lot of that money is choosing to move. That's why Bitcoin feels slow. That's why rallies don't really follow through. And that's why it looks weaker than everything else. But here's the important part. Money don't leave the market. It don't run away from risk. It just rotated. It moves to a stronger story. And that's a big difference, because when people see Bitcoin going sideways or down, they think something is wrong. But sometimes nothing is wrong. Sometimes attention just shifts. And attention doesn't stay in one place forever. It moves. It always does. And the more I thought about that, the more this stand, the more it started to click. Because the same trades pulling money away from Bitcoin right now, AI, big tech, huge IPO, they all depend on easy money. They need cheap borrowing. They need strong growth. They need investor willing to take risks. And the bigger those market gets, the more sensitive they becomes to higher rates, slow growth, and tighter financial condition. At some point, pressure builds. Investors start wanting easier condition again. And that's when the system starts to shift. That's when central banks feels it. That's when policies starts to change. And historically, that's when Bitcoin stopped being ignored and start moving faster. Now add one more layer to this, the war in Iran. This is the wild card, because war changes the financial picture very quickly. It increases spending, it increased debt, and it put more pressures on the system overall. In the short term, that usually creates fears. And when fears hit, people sell what they can. Bitcoin is very liquid. Bitcoin is very liquid, so it often gets sold first. You can get sharp drops. That's normal, but that's just the first reaction. Because after that initial panic, a different question starts to come up. How is all of this going to be paid for? And that's where things shift again. Because war are expensive, that usually leads to more borrowing, more debt, and eventually more pressures to keep the system stable. And over time, that can lead to more monies being created. When that starts happening, Bitcoin begins to behave differently. It doesn't act like just another risk asset anymore. It starts acting more like a hedge. Not perfectly, not instantly, but the direction changes. So when you step back and look at all of this together, you have a Fed that is holding rate high, but getting closer to a turning point. You have money rotating into new, exciting trades, pulling attention away from Bitcoin. And you have a war that's increased long-term pressures on the financial system. And somehow, all of that leads to Bitcoin's looking weak right now. But under the surface, those same forces are building in its favor. And this is where most people get tripped up. They focus only on price, but price and conditions are not always the same thing. Price shows you what is happening today. Condition show you what is building underneath. And right now, those two things are telling a very different story. Which leads to one final thought. The biggest risk in this moment might not be holding Bitcoin. It might be getting distracted away from it, because attention is powerful. It pulls people into whatever feels exciting right now. But those stories don't last forever. They rotate. They always do. So here's exactly how I'm positioned right now. I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I'm not chasing the AI trade. And when I see weakness, I'm adding slowly, not all at once, but consistently. Because if liquidity starts to return, and if those pressures keeps building, Bitcoin won't stay quiet. It won't stay ignored. It will move. And I would rather be positioned before that happens than trying to chase it after it's already started.